Yeah, we're back on the water now. It's quite windy on this stretch. Very much so. In fact, it's taking me everywhere. So today, Christmas Eve, and I'm now continuing down. We're going to go and have a look at the Canal. I may be doing the wrong thing here. I am really in two minds. Because I was listening, I was lying in bed last night and the wind was absolutely howling. And I'm really in two minds whether just to go straight back to the car and jack it in, to be honest. A little while ago the wind had dropped down a bit and that was a lot better. My concern is that if I go down here and I'm struggling to find anywhere, which given the wind is going to be quite likely because, you know, I can't have a camp set up in the wind if I'm going to have a big fire. Obviously the further I go down, the harder it's going to be to get back. So this could be, yeah, could be a big mistake. But as the river turns, you obviously end up with, naturally you end up with some bits which are less windy and then other bits which are really windy. And obviously still got Barton Broad to contend with as well if I decide to go back. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down to the mouth of the canal. I'm going to have a little scout around and see if I can find somewhere. If I can, then I'm going to stay and I'll then explore the canal and come back to that spot. If I can't, then I think I'm going to be heading back, to be honest. So this is day 2. I've only had a coffee this morning. I had a quick coffee and I broke down camp and sorted out my gear because there's quite a lot of stuff to sort out. And I was pretty keen to get back on the water and leave that spot behind. And yeah, just come down and just see what it's all about. And if I have to bail, that'll give me, you know, enough hours to get back to the car. He said, hopefully. You're cruising down this bit, you wouldn't even know it was windy. But I suspect I have got a slight tailwind, so it feels nice. So we should be coming up to Wayford Bridge. We'll be down here in a little while. And then not long past that is the start of the canal. I am constantly scanning these riverbanks as I go, looking for any suitable places. You know, you think all this stretch of river there would be something, but it's very, very slim pickings. But we have got a bit more in the way of patches of blue sky this morning, which was quite nice. Surprisingly, I didn't hear a tremendous amount of wildlife last night, which surprised me. Heard a few swans, and there's 1 or 2 ducks sort of kicking off, but not much at all. Well, guys, I think I'm going to have to bail on this one. I've just been walking up and down here, and I mean, this is where I thought I might be okay, but it's just so boggy, and I know if I start setting the view up, I'm going to start sinking into the mud, and it was pretty uncomfortable last night, really. There's just nowhere here. If I go a lot further up, I'm pretty sure everywhere is open. There is some more woodland much further up, but I can't see it being much different to this, because it's all the similar stuff. And the places where are open is going to be full view of houses, so that ain't going to work either. So I think I'm going to have to turn around and start heading back. Like I said, there's one place just outside of Wayford. I might stop there and have some breakfast and just consider that spot for tonight, but oh dear. And when I left the car, I didn't pass much at all. I don't think I've passed anything that's going to be any different to what I've already got here. You know, the water levels are quite high. It's obviously winter time. We've had a fair bit of rain. Just everything's just waterlogged. And I've got to be somewhere, you know, it's got to be somewhere half decent. So I'll turn around and we'll see what materialises. Okay, well I am heading back at the moment anyway. I did stop at the place just outside Wayford, and I think I could probably make a camp there, but it is right beside some fairly major reed beds, and part of this trip was cooking, and to do the cooking I need a fairly large fire, I need a large amount of hot embers, which is why I bought that big bag of wood. And the big bag has got a lot of oak and hardwoods in it to make a fire with a decent base. But you know, I do not want to be the guy who set the Norfolk reed beds on fire. Far from it. I'd rather be remembered for lots of other things than that. I may have viewed this trip with my old rose tinted glasses on, I think. I got lost in the romantic notion of cooking a Christmas dinner on the Broads and how lovely it would be. But it would be lovely. But not in these conditions. You know, when I was planning this trip, it was several weeks ago, and I was thinking, yeah, it'd be nice and still, it'd be foggy mornings, be very atmospheric. And it'd be lovely, and in those conditions it would be, but with this wind I just can't risk having a big fire, not in this wind. I am really disappointed, but you know, I kind of knew before I left that, you know, sometimes when you've been planning something for ages and then you just got this uneasy feeling, and yeah, I had the uneasy feeling. I've had it for a few days and I've been monitoring the forecast, you know, hoping that was going to change and looking at the wind directions and everything else. You see, you get some bit, I'm now here, this is virtually no wind here at all. The section where I was just back there, I was battling against a very strong headwind. Winter on the Broads in a canoe is not great, really. And I so almost put my hammock in, and I thought, no, I'm not going to take the hammock, because I've done the hammock camp, you know, sort of tail end of November, and that was pretty bleak, really. I thought, well, if I got the tent, at least I can sit in there after dark. I've got somewhere to sit. I've got the hot stove, so it'll be nice and warm. Yeah, which it was. It was. But all the wild camping has always been in hammocks. You know, and it gets you off the damp ground. It don't matter how lumpy and bumpy. I mean, I was forever picking up that ground sheet in the tent last night and digging out bits of wood and all kinds of stuff that was digging into me. So it wasn't a very level place to sleep, even with my nice mat. So I had to do a bit of side sleeping, because when I laid on my back I was sort of, you know, a bit like an inverted banana. There we are, all good fun. shame of it is the next 2 days are supposed to be really sunny, but windy and cold. If it wasn't for the wind, I could have the fire, and I can still have the fire if I'm in, a decent location, not adjacent to a whole load of reed beds, because the wind's only got to whip up a few sparks, and and with the wind blowing through the reeds, even though it's wet, the reeds are pretty dry. If that started to go up, it would be a disaster of colossal proportions. The gusts are stronger today, and the gusts were very strong last night. Very strong. I woke up a lot. I woke up a lot with the high wind. You can just hear the trees banging and clattering and going ahead. I wasn't near any big trees particularly, so I wasn't worried about anything falling on me. But when you are here, these trees in here, they do drop over. There's loads of trees lying here. The bank is so wet, and the roots, a lot of these have got very shallow root systems, so it only takes a small amount of wind to bring them down. I mean, there must be a dozen, if not 15, lay here, all recently fallen in. They've all been trimmed off. You can see the cuts are pretty recent. There's a lot more with red ribbons around, so they're obviously on the brink. It's the first place that I thought I'd be able to stop. We're now passing, and that's now got a resident swan. I have stopped there before, and that's a pretty decent spot when when the weather's better and it's not flooded, but it's very wet there. Right, this is where Barton Broad starts. You can already see there's quite a lot of ripple on the water. Hopefully the wind will keep behind me. Very atmospheric sky, isn't it? My old friend the wind does seem to be a constant partner, always there or thereabouts. You have to laugh. Yeah, does seem to be a constant companion when I'm in a canoe. I'm sure I have had some nice canoe trips where there wasn't any wind, but yeah, I struggle to remember them. I think the windy ones are always the most memorable, all for the wrong reasons. Yes, I'm just thinking maybe I'll come back to the Broads again. See what the conditions are like, maybe tail end of January, early February. Might be worth a go. I just want to get those nice, when it's really still with just that low mist. That's what I was hoping to capture, because there's no chance of that when the wind's blowing. So yeah, I have to keep an eye on the forecast, and even if I just come out just for a day trip with an option of an overnighter, you know, just bring some basic gear, just keep my options open. Oh, that's it, yeah. I was getting a bit blasé and I strayed away from the reeds. Better head back again, I think. I've got some sunglasses here somewhere. I think this is going to be a fleeting glimpse of sun, to be fair. So in the week or so, well, more than that actually, probably the last 2 weeks before I left, I've been monitoring the tide tables on the Environment Agency website. And they had been, in some areas they've been falling. Not here, but on the River Bure, I think they were falling. On the Ants, they were mostly steady, and at Ludham, they were just holding steady. It had, conditions were down as being normal, which I guess means normal for this time of year. But the Wayford Bridge levels were rising. That was one of the few places where the levels were rising. So I don't quite know why that one to be rising and the others aren't. Maybe that's because there's a few rivers emptying into that. So whether that's bringing the levels up, it's quite possible. Well, quite likely, I would imagine, not possible. About the only explanation, really. So because I haven't done much other, or had many other opportunities to do any filming, this video was going to have an awful lot of me waffling on. I did manage to shoot a bit at camp, but that was so overgrown and hard to manoeuvre around everything. I did shoot some footage, but I don't think that's going to be great, to be honest. Oh. Yeah, it was only a matter of time. Still, I've had a pretty good run, all things considered, so this last section is going to be quite tough by the looks of it. Just round the next bend, we should be able to see the bridge. Yeah, that means we're nearly back. We were 2 days early, which is a bit disappointing, isn't it? Yeah, very disappointing. Still, you just have to, this is the thing when you're planning trips and you think you sort of covered everything, and obviously this element's a risk, there always is. But I thought there would be some suitable places to camp. I didn't explore every last nook and cranny, but you sort of pretty much see where the lie of the land. I think originally I was thinking I'd go all the way to the very end of the Dilham Canal down to Honing Lock, but I've been down there a time or two and I wouldn't have had much more luck down there with the water levels, and it's not just the water levels, it's the fire aspect as well. There's not too many places on here where you can have a chuffing great fire and it's safe. I thought having a little twig stove or gas trange or something like that's fine, but because I've got my big Dutch oven, I needed to have a really decent sized fire. So maybe I was a bit too optimistic. But I've always been an optimist. My glass is usually always half full. Even after all these years and a few disappointments, you still have to you have to look on the bright side, don't you? Always look on the bright side. The only problem with that is that obviously you're often disappointed. But there we are. Somebody said to me once that an optimist is a pessimist without all the facts, which is very true. That's very true. Sometimes the most sensible decisions are the hardest ones because that's the last thing you want to do, but you have to recognise when you're beat.